Hey, everybody. Welcome to Crackpot, the podcast where each and every week we dive into a different conspiracy theory and discuss the merits or the demerits of each. We are your hosts. I'm Tim.
And I'm Zach.
And I'm Tim.
And I'm Zach.
Welcome.
You excited? You amped or what?
This is a good one.
Well, you told me like what the general title/topic is,
Yeah.
and this is something I'm completely enamored with.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't get much cooler than this to me.
It really doesn't. It's your two favorite things.
Football.
And Bigfoot.
Yeah.
UFOs and nukes.
Can't live with them, can't live without them.
This is a fascinating topic, and I am also happy that you asked. You're like, are you doing this? And I'm like, yeah. You're like, oh, good, because I was just about to dive into it because I heard an awesome story. I assume
Yes.
you heard an awesome story, probably one that I will be telling here. There is, here's the deal, guys. There is a really odd connection between UFOs and nuclear weapons. And not just the weapons, also the uranium, the radioactive clouds, the testing sites, all sorts of stuff. And believe it or not, I did not do all this research on my own. I got this from this amazing book called UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings, subtitle Extraordinary Encounters at Nuclear Weapon Sites. 500 pages of riveting reading, and I'm not even joking. This is phenomenal. And basically what this guy did is he has been doing this, I want to say, for like 30 or 40 years, and it's kind of started out as a hobby, and eventually he turned into like the UFO and nuke guy. And so these retired and former military members would come to him with their stories, and he only uses accounts of retired or former military members, because if you are active duty, it would be a breach of your
security clearance or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's like, I'm just not going to use those. When you retire, maybe we can talk then, so on and so forth. So the accounts in this book do not even go up to modern times because there's, still stuff happening without retired members. But
okay, that's actually interesting because I think, or one of the things I was afraid of when I was just kind of kicking the tires on this is it a problem that he's only talking to people that are like retired?
Yeah, I mean...
But it makes sense now that you mentioned this, right?
Yeah, is it a problem? No. I mean, does it prevent us from knowing what's going on in 2022? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
It'll come out eventually, I suppose.
Sure.
And it all kind of fits a pretty similar pattern in a way, but also the pattern makes no sense, and it's really bizarre. But this is the real deal, folks. This is not like, which planet are they from, or, pick your harebrained scheme. He's not trying to hypothesize about their motives. He's literally documenting this stuff, and it's verifiable, credible sources, radar, memos, papers, you name it. So in short, there is a incredibly strong link between UFOs and nukes that is now confirmed in declassified United States Air Force documents, FBI documents, CIA documents that has been going on for the past 70 years. And like I said, they are seen around research labs, fissile production plants, test sites, missile launch facilities, bomber alert pads, and storage areas. And this book, the second edition, is comprised by more than 150 former and retired U.S. military personnel interviews, including a base commander, a deputy base commander, and 3 squadron commanders. So these aren't like private first class that saw some weird airplane that they couldn't explain. This is...
Well, and the sheer number of people.
Yeah.
That's huge. I was thinking like 20, at most.
No, it's tons.
Crazy.
Tons and tons. I literally cannot tell all the stories. If you want all the stories, read the book. I recommend reading the book. It's great. But anyway, throughout this, he shows over hundreds of radar accounts of objects traveling at thousands of miles per hour, instantly stopping, hovering, and then instantly accelerating or doing 90 or 100-degree turns. It's just off the wall.
Ugh.
Okay, so let's start to dive in. So, nuclear Stuff started happening when, Zach?
40s.
That's right. So our story starts in the 40s. So the late 40s and the early 50s, there were repeated unauthorized flights around United States government top secret atomic weapons sites. And these sightings, these crafts that were flying over, were usually disc-shaped, but on occasion they would be spherical, cigar-shaped, and sometimes even diamond-shaped.
Okay.
So one example, this was documented by the Air Force in December of 1948 in a memo titled Summary of Aerial Phenomenon in New Mexico. They were seeing green fireballs moving at high speeds. They were seeing discs hovering, and then also meteors and natural aerial phenomenon as well. And this was from this specific memo was talking about from December of 1948 and went all the way up to August 23rd, 1950. They had over 150 observations of this. These green fireballs, these hovering discs, and these meteors and natural aerial phenomenon in just the New Mexico area around these top secret sites.
150?
Yeah. Just over there, just in 2 years, basically.
And again, I was thinking probably like 4,
right?
Just a couple.
It's wild. It is so wild, the number of accounts. Like, it almost gets boring after a while, if that's even possible. It's like, and another base had a hovering disc over it for like 6 hours, and another bomber in midair over the Atlantic saw a disc chasing them for 4 hours. It just goes on and on and on. So it's not always discs and cigars and, that sort of stuff. February 27th, 1949, glowing ping pong size objects were seen on a base. This is a Killeen base or Killeen base. They then grew to baseball size objects, passing within 6 feet of 2 separate groups of security guards. So ping pong size shape sounds like
orbs.
Yeah. Our good old Skinwalker Ranch orbs.
Yeah. And also you hear various accounts of people driving down the freeway late at night. All of a sudden, like an orb shoots out of nowhere and follows their car.
It's so weird.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been going on since minimally 1949, as documented by your United States government.
Sorry, I'm also thinking Foo Fighters, too.
Yeah. Good call, man.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway.
I figured it out.
All right, so some of the major UFO sighting locations. If you want to go out and see this sort of stuff, here's some locations you might want to check out. Los Alamos Labs, which is a theoretical research facility on atomic weaponry, or at least was. Sandia Labs, where they engineer weapons. Manazo Base, where they store weapons. Kirtland Air Force Base, where they loaded weapons on strategic bombers and cargo planes. And of course, when I'm saying weapons, I'm talking about nuclear weapons. Nevada deserts and Marshall Islands, 2 atomic weapons test sites. Clinton Engineer Works in Tennessee, which is a uranium mine, and White Sands Proving Ground, which is another atomic weapons test site. Hotbeds, all of them, of UFO activity.
Yeah, and not just completed nuclear sites, like uranium mines.
Exactly.
That's nuts.
Exactly. So check out this memo written December 2nd, 1952 by Dr. H. Marshall Chadwell, who was the assistant director of the CIA's Office on Scientific Intelligence, titled Unidentified Flying Objects. He says, "At this time, the reports of incidents convince us that there is something going on that must have immediate attention. Sightings on unexplained objects at great altitudes and traveling at high speeds in the vicinity of major U.S. defense installations are of such nature that they are not attributable to natural phenomena or known types of aerial vehicles." So right off the bat, they're saying, guess what? It's not meteors, it's not Venus, it's not swamp gas, and it's occurring around these facilities, and it's not anything that we have.
Truly UAPs.
Yeah. In 1953, the military was strongly thinking that these were Soviets.
Oh, well, yeah, logically, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like, well, okay, maybe it's the other guys, right? In 1956, there was a report by Air Force Captain Ruppelt that UFOs were considered a genuine threat by all branches of the military and the intelligence community. So they did eventually pivot away from the Soviet idea that these were just, super advanced things that they figured out before we did. But they consistently and continually categorize these as threats. Like, this is not good. This is a genuine threat.
That makes sense, yeah.
Which, in a way, basically explains, I think, even the modern day military or military-industrial complex or the government's approach to the UFO phenomenon. It's like, we don't want to tell you because it's a danger and it's a threat, and if we can't name it or place it or figure it out, then it's going to be even more scary to you. Therefore, we're just going to avoid talking about it and pretend it doesn't even exist.
Yeah, which is like, frustrating on the one hand, but also I totally get why that's the approach. And I guess I would say it's probably because, well, you just want to cut down on people having irrational fears, but also it's like we just don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, completely.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's talk about some examples.
I'm terrified.
So early 1951, there was a nuclear engineer. He was watching atomic weapons being loaded into an aircraft, and he saw lights on the horizon. So he ran inside and he got a technical telescope, and through it he saw 3 silver disc-shaped objects, each with a central dome structure. Your classic, stereotypical UFO, which I just love. He reported it to his superiors. He was told it was top secret and to never talk about it again. And he said in his career, he saw objects under similar circumstances do Mach 3, Mach 4, and even Mach 5, and then stop and hover. And just to give you an idea what Mach 5 is, it's 3,836 miles an hour, or 6,174 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
There is nothing that goes that fast.
Well, immediately I'm thinking lights in the sky, Jupiter.
Yeah, sure. Right. Swamp gas. Venus. But yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, he's a nuclear engineer. The guy is credible. Yeah. Completely credible.
Well, and the other thing, too, is the fact that he was basically directed to not say a word and just keep everything hush-hush suggests that other people are like, yeah, we kind of know.
Yeah, okay, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. At an atomic test site on October 30th, 1951, just before detonation, 18 silvery, rotating, disc-shaped objects, each with a dome, came down and hovered for 30 seconds, and then left at an angle and were gone in seconds.
Oh, wow.
Could you even imagine that?
No.
I mean...
Well, we're so used to seeing the Tic Tac video where it's one or maybe 2 or 3 objects.
Like a cell phone video of a radar, in green and black tones. God, come on. Give me something cool. That would be cool. 18 silver... Okay, anyway. Radioactive clouds. Because when you blow up a nuclear weapon, there is a radioactive cloud that travels.
Yep, the mushroom cloud.
The mushroom cloud, and then what happens afterwards when the prevailing winds blow it across. So, January 28th, 1954, a B-50 dropped an 8-kiloton bomb, which is 1/2 of the Hiroshima bomb, on the Nevada Proving Grounds. Okay? We were doing tests all the time.
Mm-hmm.
No big deal.
Can I just say real quick? We're literally nuking ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's testing, but...
hundreds of times.
It makes no sense.
It's so... Save that for later. All okay, right. Anyway. So the prevailing winds took the radioactive cloud across the continental United States.
Sure.
It passed Albany, New York at 5:30 p.m. EST on January 29th. On January 29th, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 F-86 pilots saw a, quote, green ship-like light descend over Albany and then vanish. Which, again, hey, maybe it's just a random UFO. dropping on over a major city in the United States.
Checking in.
But the coincidence of this radioactive cloud in conjunction with all these other, their seeming interest in all things nuclear is just bizarre. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, this suggests it's probably more than coincidence, right?
Yeah.
They're checking
in conjunction with everything else. Yeah. November 5th, 1951, we detonated a 3-kiloton bomb over in Nevada. And then the winds blew the cloud into South New Mexico, West Texas, and northern Mexico. And the following day, green fireballs were seen in the sky over all of those places.
Okay.
Right? It's like, what even is that? So this green fireball phenomenon, it could be, let's just hypothesize, let's theoreticize here. It could be a new natural phenomenon.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. It could be secret U.S. development, maybe?
Probably not, but
it could be meteors. Or it could be like interplanetary vehicles.
I'm inclined to say that the first option, basically some sort of almost like a natural phenomenon here is occurring. Like, I could believe that. We just we don't know enough about
don't know
how it all works, right?
You're right.
It's either that or it's aliens. Nothing else, man.
It's literally nothing else. The government theory, at least at the time, we're talking like early 1950s, was these green fireballs. Well, I should say the Los Alamos scientists who were seeing these and the technicians who were seeing these, they were theorizing that they were, quote, unmanned test vehicles being projected into our atmosphere from a spaceship hovering several hundred miles above Earth.
Okay.
Which is highly specific.
Yeah.
And these are not dumb people, These are not people, I think, who would like jump to, unmanned test vehicles being projected into our atmosphere. Yep, that's it. No, like these are the smartest of the smartest people possibly in the world.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Okay.
All right.
May 7th through 9th, 1952, there was fallout from a nuclear explosion moving east. And 8 disc-shaped objects over a South Carolina Atomic Energy Commission plant were seen as the fallout went over that plant. Okay. So could be one, could be the other, could be both. May 19th, 1952, there was a radioactive cloud over Prescott, Arizona. And in this case, 3 reliable residents independently saw 8 discs over the city. So these are not military or United States people, but they're just three good old Prescott citizens, each from a different vantage point. Each saw 8 silvery discs. Weird stuff, man.
Yeah. So it would be different if they're all in the same place at the exact same time and seeing the exact same thing, but they're all just basically independently verifying what they're seeing. Okay.
Exactly. Oddly enough, there were no known UFOs on the Pacific Atolls in 1946, 1948, or 1951 when we were doing testing out there. Mm-hmm. They just they weren't there. It's like they just took those 3 years off. Maybe they had to go back to their home planet. I don't know, man.
That's right.
But it's odd. The absence is notable because the lack of absence or their presence is so notable in nearly every other circumstance. So what was going on in 46, 48, and 51 out there, we don't know. But the first H-bomb was detonated on November 1st, 1952. This was called Operation Ivy, which was a truly rancid occasion. And if you get that joke, we're now best friends. So
that's funny.
Okay. You didn't get it, did you?
I did.
All right.
I wanted to make a joke. Okay, keep going.
Okay. So this was 10.4 megatons. To put it in relationship to the Hiroshima bomb, 700 times as powerful.
Ugh.
What are we doing?
What
are we doing, buddy? I don't know. So they knew this was going to be a big deal. All the scientists were like, hey, every time we do something like this, the UFOs show up. So you remember Project Blue Book?
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys that were going around trying to gather all the UFO data through different sources and then also covering it up and saying it wasn't a real thing and then, whatever, fill in your cynical comment there. They heard about this. They got wind and they're like, we've never actually seen UFOs. We only get there after the fact and we interview people and we look at the data and we see the pictures. Can we come? Can we come to this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, dude, come on out. It's gonna be a big one. So Project Blue Book goes out to the Eniwetok Atoll in the Pacific to see a craft firsthand. And there were two sightings before the test, like hours before the test, and none during and none after.
Oh, so it's almost like a little recon mission beforehand or something, right?
Yeah, which was interesting because usually they, maybe they show up like immediately before or like during or definitely afterwards, but they showed up before. Just almost in a way, it seems like they were just like, hey, yeah, we're here, but we don't care. Yeah. Or this isn't of interest to us or whatever. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not going to hypothesize what their motives are, but bizarre, man.
Indeed.
So Project Blue Book actually got to see two craft. Oddly enough, no UFO activity reported worldwide during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Could it be that everyone was watching the TV and no one was looking up at the sky? Could it be that the UFOs were like, whoa, it's a little bit too tense. Let's not try to set off anything that might cause something.
Right.
Could it be something different altogether?
Yeah, I think the unpredictable nature of this is actually what makes it hard, amongst other things.
Yeah, sure. But 2 days after the Cuban Missile Crisis ended, two bombers who were always in the air, because we had airplanes that were always in the air, always ready to go, always fully loaded. So two of these bombers that were flying between the continental United States and either the Arctic or the Mediterranean Sea saw a dull metallic gray cigar-shaped craft hovering, and it was, a half mile long.
Dude, okay, I'm sorry. We did the Battle of LA show.
Yeah.
And there was that nuclear warning / crisis on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And the consistent reports back from people who saw a UFO was a cigar-shaped craft that was like massive.
Yeah.
They were trying to estimate. It was like more than a football field. So,
like a half a mile, maybe?
Yeah.
I know there's a big distance between football and
right,
but nevertheless it's like, yeah, sure, why wouldn't it, why couldn't it be the same thing?
Right? Or the same species of aliens or whatever, right?
Yeah,
that's wild,
isn't it though? So yeah, they saw this, it was hovering there, and then once they basically locked eyes on it, it started moving very slow for a few seconds, and then it left up at an angle and was gone like within seconds.
Oh, it's weird. Similar to the Battle of LA, they saw it move really, really slowly.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what they said about it leaving. I think it just disappeared eventually, but it was moving very slowly.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I what do you even do with this information?
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
It's so bonkers. But anyway, here's some more information. So there were plenty of sightings over nuclear missile sites at the Walker Air Force Base, which used to be Roswell Air Force Base. It was later renamed.
I didn't know that.
That's right. Yeah, they renamed it.
When? Just kidding. And why? And why didn't they ask me?
And in 1963, 1964, objects would hover over the silos, shine lights, there would be no noise, and the light was usually yellowish, dim, and the beam was 6 inches in diameter, and then everything would just vanish. It was a consistent thing that happened for about 2 years over the Walker Air Force Base. Why? I don't know.
Yeah. We should stop asking that question.
Yeah, we really should. But anyway, 1964, 1965, objects would be seen on radar and then seen with the eyes, so like double verification. And they would scramble the jets, and then the moment like the jets got in the air, these objects would just disappear. Now, it just bears repeating that there is or was no craft that was going hundreds of miles an hour, turning on right angles, and, just like stopping, hovering, disappearing. Like that is not man-made. That is not Soviet. It is not United States technology. Like, what is it? I don't even know. The fastest U.S. or Russian planes at the time was basically 700 miles an hour, but they were planes.
Yeah.
And they would fly in a straight line. And when they turned, they would
take
curve.
forever. Yeah.
Right, Okay, so there are, I'm going to say 4 really phenomenal incidents here. Frightening, scary, crazy, baffling, but 4 that just really, really stood out in this book. So the first one is the Big Sur UFO incident. So this was reported by Lieutenant Bob Jacobs and Major Florence Mansman, and it happened in September of 1964. So this was just a test launch. They were launching an Atlas D ICBM intercontinental ballistic missile from the Vandenberg Air Force Base in Colorado, and it was going to splash down near the Enwatuck Lagoon in the Pacific Ocean. So this specific missile, they were trying out a new technology. It had an experimental energy radar defeating system and a dummy nuclear warhead. So it wasn't even a nuclear weapon, but they were treating it as such, and it had this new technology that would be able to defeat some sort of radar Soviet something, right? Okay. So they launched it, and as it was in air, flying towards its target, and this was all captured on 16 millimeter film, okay? It was approached by a disc-shaped UFO that chased the missile, circled it 4 times, and flashed beams of light at it. Okay. The missile wobbled, fell into the ocean hundreds of miles short of the target. So it was considered a failure, but they're looking at this film, and all these generals and high-ranking muckety-mucks in the military are like, okay, what did we just see? So these 2 people I mentioned, Lieutenant Bob Jacobs and Major Florence Mansman, they have the film, and they were showing it to the higher-ups, and then they said there were 2 government agents, although they never identified themselves and they never showed identification, and they didn't say anything during this whole thing. They showed the film, and then these 2 men got up, went to the reel-to-reel 16 millimeter film, cut out the length of film where the UFO was, and left.
Men in Black, straight up.
Exactly.
Dang. They're sneaky.
They're sneaky dudes. And it's like these... I know you can say, well, they're just making up stories or whatever.
Mechanical failure, some weird phenomenon happened in the sky we can't explain. It's not aliens, folks. It's just like I said, mechanical failure with the bomb.
Yeah. So it's bizarre. It's crazy. It's weird. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
1966, summer night. We're in the Ellsworth Air Force Base just outside of Rapid City, South Dakota. You ever been?
Love it.
Beautiful. Air Force Staff Sergeant Albert Spodnik. He is basically in charge of one of these 150 Minuteman I missiles. So there's missile silos all over, or were hopefully all over the United States, and they're spread out on these bases and in all sorts of places. This guy was looking after one of them when suddenly, out of nowhere, all commercial and emergency power systems failed. So commercial power fails, you got backup generators. I mean, we're talking nuclear missile silos. You need some sort of backup power. It fails, and the missiles then became inoperable. And all of a sudden, there's reports of a mysterious object on the ground. Just, it's there. Like maybe it hovered, came down slowly. No one saw it come down, but it is on the ground, and it is metallic, and it's resting on a tripod landing gear. And each one of the feet is about 25 feet apart on this gravel ground of this Air Force base here. There were bright lights coming from it. Many requests to shoot at it. All were denied by the base commander. Suddenly the power came on and it flew away immediately. Afterwards, black unmarked helicopters came and went from the base for 3 to 4 weeks. Men with short, dark hair and dark clothes running around taking pictures, soil samples, air samples, grass samples, interviews. Actually, scratched the interviews. They didn't do any interviews because they didn't talk to anyone. They just gathered the info and they left.
Sounds like the end of E.T., the movie.
Kind of does, yeah.
Straight up.
I don't know.
It does.
Okay. The winter of 1966 and 67, so this was either December or January, somewhere in that ballpark, David S. Schur, who was a Minuteman missile crew member of the 455th 191st Strategic Missile Wing in Minot, North Dakota. You ever been?
I have not.
I have. Not going to say it's beautiful.
Okay.
Anyway, so all of a sudden, the primary alert system goes off. You know, warnings,
Something's
lights
not right.
flashing, sirens going. All flights in the area report seeing UFOs flying around near the facilities. And a UFO just kind of worked its way around the facility, only visiting the silos. So this is another facility with just like hundreds of these nuclear silos, underground silos, right?
Sure.
And it's just traveling from silo to silo. Just not all of them, but some of them just hovering over it, shining lights on it, and then moving on to the next. So a security team sees this large, bright object, and it passes over David S. Schur's nuclear weapon, and the console starts giving off all sorts of indications and readings and codes and erratic, he calls them erratic indications on his monitors. And it's just going and going, and all of a sudden his missile got a launch in progress indication, meaning the nuclear missile that he is in charge of, that's probably aimed at, I don't know, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Smolensk, you name it, is going into countdown mode, okay?
Terrifying.
Immediately, he activates the inhibit switch to stop it.
Yeah.
And then the UFO moves on to the next missile and everything gets reset. So, and to kind of talk through this, the launch in progress means that the missile has received a launch signal and someone in the silo has also pressed a button. So it's so like, you know, the person there can't just like hit a button. It takes at least 2, if not more, people to do this, but it triggered it. And the inhibit will delay the launch, but you need another inhibit to truly stop the launch. So that some, I don't know, hippie peacenik can't just like stop, you know, nuclear war from happening because they don't like it. So it takes a double reaction, or a double stopgap to do either one. Anyway, this UFO hovering over the missile was able to do both, and then just floated on to the next one, and everything was fine and dandy. So he reports it up the chain of command. Obviously, like everyone on the base knows this is happening, but the official response was, quote, "Nothing happened here."
I see.
Which leads me to my favorite and or most terrifying of all the events we can talk about here. So March 1974, this is at the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. You ever been?
To the base, yeah.
Oh, cool, man. So this is reported by a U.S. Air Force captain of the 564th Strategic Missile Squadron. And it happened between 8 and 10 p.m., and it lasted for about 30 to 90 minutes. All of a sudden, the alarm goes off at the base, at the security fence. Okay. Then the inner alarm goes off at the missile silo. The security teams outside, they saw a large self-illuminated object hovering over the launch facility, and it was so bright that they couldn't even tell the shape of the object. It was just like blindingly bright.
Sure, yeah.
Suddenly, the missile he's in charge of went into countdown mode. He quickly flipped the inhibit switch. The launch enable started almost immediately, which shouldn't have been possible. So he flips inhibit. It goes right back into launch. He hits inhibit a second time, and it doesn't do anything. It's like the switch isn't even there. The screen went from launch command to launch in progress to missile away.
Oh.
And this guy is terrified.
Oh, yeah.
Did I just start World War III?
Right.
Is mankind extinct in the next, 18 months?
Yeah.
I don't know. So he calls security. He's like, do you see a missile being launched? Literally, is there a missile in the air right now? And he gets a no, sir response back. Shortly after this, the UFO left straight up at a high speed with absolutely no sound. Radar saw it. Planes were scrambled. No one could catch it. All electronics on the ground were completely fried.
I got to say, I feel slightly uncomfortable saying this, but also I'm pretty certain about what I'm going to say here, which is it sounds like these UFOs, UAPs, aliens, whatever, are very intentional in that they do not want these nukes to go off.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
It does. And so therefore, kind of where my head is at is as follows. Even if they accidentally launch something, perhaps they would then stop it too, because they don't want it to happen either, evidently, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say hey, don't panic at the base, because obviously this is terrifying.
Right.
But maybe it's not something to worry about in that regard. I don't know.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous.
It is, but also it's it's impossible for us to debate the motives, which we will probably get to, but nevertheless, they're so concentrated around these sites and these facilities. It's not like every time a commercial jet goes off and flies across the Atlantic, there's a UFO trailing it.
Right.
It's not like every time a submarine, which actually there's some submarine sightings. But what I'm trying to say is there's no other correlation that we know of that is so heavily concentrated with UFO sightings as these nuclear things, facilities, clouds, bombs, uranium mines.
It seems one for one.
It truly does.
And also, I guess I would say, to kind of go back the other way just for a sec too, there have been actual tests that have been conducted.
Yes.
So they don't catch everything, or they don't attend everything apparently, or we don't see them, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they just don't go to every single one, but yeah.
One thing too, as I'm thinking about this, is I'm very curious, globally speaking, if the Soviets or the Chinese or anybody else has seen anything like this too.
Yeah. Well, of course, for the longest time we had no idea.
Yeah.
But through Glasnost, Perestroika, etc., we have learned of at least 40 major incidents in the Soviet Union with UFOs and nukes. So we weren't alone. The most terrifying, extravagant, I don't know, one of these was reported by Army Lieutenant Colonel Vladimir Platonovev on October 4th, 1982 in the Soviet Ukraine. He saw a 900-foot solid disc hovering over the base for hours. And I'm sure also a lot of other people saw this too.
Seriously.
Probably hard to miss, but he was the one that wrote up the report, of course. Unspecified numbers of missiles suddenly activating, and then automatic launch sequences going. 15-second countdown started that got to 0 and then reset. Lights flashed that would only light if ordered from Moscow. And basically, their government was very similar to ours. They just said, oh, it was a flare.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. Swamp gas.
Well,
Soviet swamp gas.
Yeah, you said there were 40 accounts that were found?
Minimally, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to say there's probably 400 that have just not been found.
Exactly. So, okay, I know we kind of danced around this and made fun of it and tried, but why? Why nukes? I got a couple ideas. So,
yes.
Who knows? But Remember the Eisenhower episode?
I do.
Yeah, fun one. Go back and check that in your podcatcher if you haven't already.
Season 1, by the way. You got to way back.
Way back. Eisenhower and the
Dimensional treaty.
Intergalactic treaty, something. Yeah. You'll find it.
Episode
anyway.
5.
So the idea of that was that us setting off nuclear weapons was like this trigger to alien races. Like, hey, you've reached a new pinnacle in technology. Or maybe these explosions have ripple effects through different dimensions.
Yes, right.
So, I don't know, one or the other, yes or no?
Well, yeah, that would explain it to me because, the most powerful force that we have discovered in terms of like weaponry and science and all this stuff is nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
H-bombs, all this crazy stuff. And maybe that sends out a blast of radiation that they can detect and go, oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, those upright,
Earthlings.
Yeah, those apes over there, they got something going on.
Yeah, and then they just
probably
pop
go check it out. I don't know. See if they can handle this or not.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And if you're a patron and listen to the Wednesday, Thursday show, you know that we've talked about, the idea of a petri dish. Like, the Earth or human civilization is basically a petri dish by other alien civilizations.
Exactly. So what about time-traveling humans?
I doubt it.
Aliens are time-traveling humans. We talked about it. So maybe they are, if you believe this hypothesis, maybe they are coming back and watching. They're testing, they're warning, they're stopping, they're preventing.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of dismissed it outright, but actually that would make sense if they're just trying to like send a signal, I guess.
Right.
Like, hey, be conscious of this, be aware of this. This is not something you should be doing, or at least be careful. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting.
Or I'm just going to say, like, if you have a time machine and you're like, I don't know, pick a year, 20,000 years in the future, what are you going to go see? Like, I don't know, Christ and the Magna Carta and maybe the first nuclear explosion.
Right.
Like, I mean, those are seminal events in human history, right?
Well, it's almost like you're suggesting either like tourists.
Yeah, kind of.
Or they're trying to go back and like, figure out what really happened.
What were
something.
they thinking? They really did this much?
Yeah.
Man.
Okay.
We're still dealing with this, the radioactive fallout this much longer.
Yeah.
So another question I have is like, why did they do the launch sequences like in these missile silos? Like that is dramatic. Like they have a real sense of dramatic flair to do this sort of thing. Were they learning how the weapons operated so that they could maybe prevent them? Was it a warning, like just like instilling the fear of God into them? Mm-hmm. Was it, maybe it's malicious in a way?
It could be all of the above. And I would say I could believe that they are trying to maybe figure out how our technology works, understanding they have mastery over it.
Yeah.
Maybe they flipped the wrong switch and activated the missile, said, oh, sorry, wait, no, hold on. And like I said earlier, perhaps they wouldn't let it go off anyways, right? They're just trying to figure it out. I don't know.
Maybe it's something like, I know you humans think you have the most powerful weapons in the universe. Mm-hmm. And I know you think you are like close to God, but we can stop them anytime. We can control it at any point. Yeah. We can launch them. We can prevent them. So don't mess with us. Don't mess with each other. And don't mess with us.
Well, I had done an episode about one of the Iranian pilots who locked a target on a UFO.
That's right.
And when he went to engage his missiles, his like whole, pilot or his whole craft could no longer engage and shoot anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, I tried. I don't know what happened. There's no explanation for this, but it's the same type of thing.
Yeah. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, what stinks is the fact that I actually now am really starting to believe all this stuff.
You were before, let's be honest, but like it's scary. It's weird. Well, is it scary or is it kind of reassuring maybe that they could prevent World War III?
I'm going to go with the latter. I actually feel like maybe this is a good sign because, okay, clearly, well, if you take the premise that aliens exist, they haven't destroyed us.
Yeah, right.
And this, I guess, is kind of ruling out the possibility that they're destroying us like more covertly by, I don't know, escalating tensions globally or something like that.
Yeah.
So I would just say, like, in general, like, if they wanted to do something to us, they would have by now. Yeah. And they haven't, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And they're not, like, as far as I can tell, promoting nuclear war. They're trying to stop it, more or less. That's got to be a good sign.
Right?
Unless there's some ulterior motives there.
I mean, and who can, I mean, the whole thing is pointless, but it's like something weird is happening.
Yep.
There's a direct correlation 1-to-1, and no one seems to know what's going on.
But there is a gigantic book sitting so on your chair.
It is so good, guys. UFOs and Nukes, Extraordinary Encounters at Nuclear Weapons Sites by Robert Hastings. It's legitimately a good read. It's fun. Huge index, too, so you can flip around and find stuff you want. Maps, indexes, tables of contents, appendices. This book has everything.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. And by the way, Zach mentioned it earlier. We have a Patreon out there as well, whatever it's called. Where can you find that?
Patreon.com/Crackpot Podcast.
That's the one. Head on over there to get hundreds of other episodes just like this, and also a weekly little bonus show that comes along with it. It is worth it, and I think you'll enjoy it. So if you haven't already, please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your local nuclear physicist about our podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.